What's up everybody, I am the Net Alliance. Today I'm going to be ranking all 7 Star Wars final lightsaber battles in all the movies. So from episode 1 all the way to episode 7, I'm going to be ranking every single lightsaber battle. So which one is the worst, which one is the best, let's find out. But before I begin, let me just state, I will be ranking these from my personal opinion, the ones I think are the best, the one that has the most impact, from worst to best, which one is just the overall better lightsaber duel, not only in style, but also with the impact that will make in the entire franchise. But before we go any further, this is just my opinion. So if you have your own opinion, let me know in the comments below. Let me see your rank of how you'd rank all these. And I guess that's it. So let's begin. Starting at number 7, I chose Star Wars Episode 7. Now the reason why I chose Star Wars Episode 7 is because my number 6 rank was definitely gonna be my number 7 rank. And so I just rewatched the film again. And I've seen it about like 3 or 4 times now. And the very ending fight scene is just kind of lacking for me. It doesn't make sense in the overall story arc of the entire franchise to be that, when it comes down to it, being able to use the Force and being able to use the lightsaber, they're two completely different things. And I already did a video on this, so link on screen. But anyways, the overview of that is pretty much how Rey just picks up a lightsaber and is automatically just really good at it. She focuses herself. And I do think there's a theory behind that, like maybe she had some Jedi training or some type of lightsaber use training back when she was a kid and actually repressed the memories. I don't know if it's true, that's just my guess on that one. But I feel like this fight was just put in because there needs to be a lightsaber fight at the end of the film. That's just always how it goes. Now usually there's a good reason for why it happens. I think, although I do realize that it's kind of like in Star Wars 101, you need to have a lightsaber battle at the end of your movies, that's just how things work, which I'm okay with. But I prefer there to be an actual reason for why they're using these lightsabers instead of just having a lightsaber duel to have a lightsaber duel. And of course you can make this argument with some of the prequels, and we'll get to them. But overall, lightsaber duels happen because there was a reason for it. This just kind of was like, oh, he killed Han Solo and he saw them, and although he took a blaster bolt to the stomach, he decided to chase them down, and somehow he actually got ahead of them, and it doesn't make any sense. It's dumb. There's no way he can get ahead of them at the same time as them just walking right outside. It doesn't make sense. I will give it props in kind of twisting the movie a little bit, because from the posters we thought that Finn was going to be the new Jedi. And then as time goes on, we realize that Rey is supposed to be the new Jedi, the new main Jedi. So I did think it was pretty cool for her to pick up the lightsaber and fight back. I just don't think that it made sense for her to be so good at it. Because yeah, we've seen her fighting hand to hand. We've seen her fighting with a staff already and how good she is with that. But a staff and a hand to hand is a lot different from a lightsaber. But of course, that's just my opinion. Overall, this fight was all flash and no actual story behind it. Overall, this fight was kind of like a cupcake made out of poo. There's the nice, delicious whipped cream on top. It looks really pretty. It makes it look really nice. And then it doesn't really matter due to the fact that the cupcake is still poo anyways, so you're still eating poo even if it's shiny, It's one of those things. And with all that said, this is not the most boring fight scene, it's the context behind it. It doesn't mean anything. And for that, it gets ranked 7 on this list. At number 6, I have Star Wars Attack of the Clones final fight scene. Now the reason why I have this one here is due to the fact that not only was it always one I just disliked the most, before the 7th one of course, but it suffers from the same thing the 7th one did too. There's all this flash, but no texture. It's another situation where its bark is louder than its bite. It may try to serve a purpose, but I feel that the only reason this fight even exists is because episode 2 existed and they needed the fight scene at the end, and Anakin needed to lose his hand at some point, so they just kind of combined those two ideas together. However, this was the first time we actually saw Yoda's skill with the lightsaber, and that was pretty awesome, so we gotta give it credit for that. And in a way, I can kind of see what George Lucas is trying to go for here. He's trying to establish Dooku's power, He's able to take out Obi-Wan like nothing. He takes out Anakin like nothing, and he kind of struggles against Yoda, but he still kind of holds his own, and they wanted to show that that's how powerful he is, and I understand that, but overall, the fight was kind of pointless. And another thing that always annoyed me about this fight was due to the fact that when Dooku is force crushing that pillar and about to fall on top of Obi-Wan and Anakin, Yoda actually stops fighting and he starts trying to catch it with his force. Why the heck didn't Dooku slice Yoda right there and take him down? Instead, he decided to run. He could have cut Yoda, and then the pillars would have landed on Anakin and Obi-Wan anyways, and therefore Yoda, Anakin, and Obi-Wan would all be taken out, and everyone would be happy. And you can make the argument, yeah, well, you see, Count Dooku, he needed to show his power. We needed to see his full strength. And what I say to that is, well, why didn't we see that earlier in the film? Why didn't we see Dooku's true strength earlier, so then we can see what that can actually do throughout the film? Because the whole thing is, We see his full strength in the very end of this film, and the very beginning of the next film he dies, so it's kind of pointless to even do that. It's little stuff like that in this fight scene is just kind of annoying to me. And for that, it's number 6 on this list. Coming in at number 5, I chose Star Wars A New Hope's final lightsaber battle. Now before people get angry at me for putting it so low on this list, here's my reasoning. First off, yes, I understand this was the very first lightsaber duel. They didn't really know what they wanted to do with the lightsaber duels in the future when the franchise continued to go. I understand that. And although the context behind this fight is really rich, and I do like that idea of it, it's just kind of plain. Remember back to the whole poop cupcake thing I was talking about? Well, here's what it is. So now we have a nice delicious cupcake, but we have frosting that's like mint flavored or something. Who wants mint? What I'm getting at is the fact that yes, the cupcake is delicious. You know, the texture of this fight, it makes sense. It's a good fight. But the mint frosting that's supposed to be the style of the fight and the entertainment value from it, it's just lacking. And as I previously stated, yes, I understand this is the very first lightsaber duel again, okay? But it's just kind of boring. And I think people would agree with me on this. I'm not saying it's a bad fight, it's just boring compared to some of the newer ones. And if you remember to the very beginning of this video, I said I was gonna be rating these things on their overall presence. So although this lightsaber fight does mean a lot to the overall series, it's just not that entertaining. And that's why it's number 5 on this list. For both ranking 4 and 3, I kind of had a problem choosing between the two because they're both just so good. But in the end, I went with which one would I rather see more. So here it is. At number 4, I chose Star Wars Return of the Jedi Final Battle. Now the culmination of this entire saga goes right onto this final fight. And I like this fight because this fight showed what lightsaber duels could eventually be in the prequels. I like the fact that Luke was more trained and Vader wasn't particularly expecting that, but he knew he was stronger, but he didn't really know what to expect. I like that idea. Of course, this lightsaber duel is definitely more flashy than the rest of the original trilogies. The tone it was going for, the dark side flowing through the air, you know, the entire atmosphere was pure darkness. It's funny to say this, but personally as a viewer, I felt the dark side trembling around Luke. You know, I felt like the presence of the entire area that they were fighting was just pure darkness, just flowing through him, which is a great way to show that atmosphere. And although I feel this fight has more impact on the entire series than the third ranking you're about to see, I think the presentation of this fight just isn't as good, but it's still an epic fight and it deserves to be in the top 5 in this list. Jumping into number 3, I chose Star Wars The Phantom Menace. This fight scene was great due to the fact that you can see the advancement of which they made from the previous films. I feel the original films just scratched the surface of what a lightsaber fight could be, and in the first one they realized exactly what it could be, and George Lucas pushed it full throttle. Both Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan go up against Darth Maul with his staff lightsaber. It's a thrill to watch because not only does it look pretty, but the score is insanely good. If we were going off just the music aspects, I'd probably put this one at number 1. You hear the chorus as these heroes are trying to battle this evil villain. You want for them so bad to win, but you feel like it's gonna come at a cost. And unfortunately, it does by Qui-Gon being killed by Darth Maul. But Obi-Wan rises to the challenge. He takes up his master's lightsaber and he finishes off the bad guy. If you look at every other lightsaber fight throughout the franchise, the good guy or the bad guy are constantly trading quips, or talking crap on each other, or whatever. But this entire fight, there is no talking. There's just lightsaber on lightsaber action. But while this fight scene may have more of the flashy aspects and it does have a very rich texture, it is kind of hindered by the thing that I mentioned earlier about adding lightsaber battles in just because lightsaber battles. Right before the fight begins, when Darth Maul first reveals himself, there's like 20 people there with guns. If they all would have shot at the same time, Darth Maul would have died. Could have avoided the entire fight, Qui-Gon would have lived, and probably Anakin would have been raised to be a proper Jedi and would have been able to control his anger. Due to the fact that he was raised by Qui-Gon, he would have treated him more like a son and less like a brother, as I kind of see as Obi-Wan kind of did it. So that's why it's number 3 on this list. Moving on to number 2, I chose Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. We all know why this fight scene is so good. This is kind of the first time Luke stands up to Darth Vader. Not only is it impactful, but it also shows just how strong Vader is. The entire fight, he's completely toying with Luke. He's showing Luke just how inexperienced he really is. Of course, Luke might have had some time of training, but not nearly enough to take down Vader. This fight is very reminiscent of the Sith one to me. The entire tone is dark. Luke's inner feelings and emotions are taking over what his brain should be doing. He should be training with Yoda, keeping out of sight, making sure he can get stronger so he can eventually take down Vader. But his friends are in trouble and he needs to help them. It's a great premise because you can see with Luke, he wants to save his friends. He wants to take down Vader. He wants to save the entire galaxy, but he's just not strong enough. And we can see that struggle. And of course, this all eventually culminates to Luke getting his arm cut off and finding out that Vader is his father. Now, of course, the newer lightsaber fights are much more flashy than this one, but the reason reason for this being here, the presence it brings, it's incredible. And it almost took the #1 spot. But you all know what fight scene is at #1, but this one was so close to getting it. At #1, I have Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. This fight scene is epic. Everything from the lightsaber duel to the atmosphere to even the epic score. It all comes together to make perfect synergy. You can feel the hate rushing through Anakin through this entire fight. You can even feel the sadness rushing through Obi-Wan. Anakin wants to kill Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan just wants to stop Anakin. And if that means to kill him, then that means to kill him. These two best friends, the main protagonists of the prequel series, are fighting, and we don't know which side to pick. Of course, we want Obi-Wan to win because he's the good guy, but we don't want Anakin to die either because Anakin's been there since the very beginning. And although we understand what pain Anakin's going through, he has to be stopped. He's honestly too powerful and too evil now to be left alive. Of course, in the end, Obi-Wan comes out on top, but he didn't even have the heart to kill his own best friend. He got him to the point of death, he sees him burning on the shore, and although it would have been the right thing to kill Anakin there and just get it over with, Obi-Wan just didn't have the heart to do it. He could not kill his own best friend. It shows the epicness of what this friendship they have between them, you know, the bond. Think of your best friend. What if you guys had to fight to the death? Would you kill him? Would you be able to do that? I know I couldn't, even if he did steal my cookies. I came to the dark side for a reason. And like I said, from an overall impact standpoint, this needed to happen for us to see the original trilogy. Because without the third film happening, there couldn't have been an original trilogy. Of course, coming from a story standpoint, that is. And with all this said, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith has the very best lightsaber fight scene. But of course, that's just my opinion. What's your opinion? Let me know in the comments below. How would you rank these fights? Remember to like and subscribe if you guys enjoy my videos. And until next time, guys, we'll see ya. Peace.